The story rewinds to a few hours earlier, setting the scene on a quiet night. A young man is seen meticulously scrubbing a bathroom, focusing on the tiles and drain. This is Yamamoto, a university student who finds deep satisfaction in making things clean. He prefers the simple, rewarding logic of cleaning over the unpredictability of people. After finishing, he's shocked to see the time, realizing his late-night shift at the convenience store has been unusually quiet. The initial post-cleaning high wears off, quickly replaced by a wave of intense boredom. He stares at the security monitor, wondering how this empty store even manages to stay open. Suddenly, the automatic doors slide open, and the silhouette of a customer breaks the silence. The customer approaches the counter and calls out his name, making Yamamoto look up in surprise. He immediately recognizes the voice belonging to the person now smiling before him. Yamamoto is stunned into silence, recognizing the unexpected customer. The young woman, Hayashi, gazes at him with an unreadable, almost melancholic expression. She hums thoughtfully, her large eyes studying him intently. A bead of sweat forms as he utters her name, Hayashi, still processing the surprise. His mind reels at the sheer coincidence of her also living in Tokyo. Hayashi casually confirms she lives nearby, turning the question back on him with a gentle smile. The casual conversation throws him off, especially when she praises him for getting into a good university. He mechanically scans her item, marveling at how different she is now, a stark contrast to their high school days. His mind flashes back to their high school classroom, setting the scene for who Hayashi used to be. He recalls her being bored and listless in class, accidentally dropping an item right in front of his desk. He remembers the item she dropped was, of all things, her eraser. The young Yamamoto debated whether to be helpful or just ignore it completely. He reluctantly decided to pick it up just to avoid her inevitable whining later. But his simple act of kindness was met with a sudden, furious glare. He calmly placed the eraser on her desk, informing her that she had dropped it. Hayashi responded with nothing but a dismissive click of her tongue. Her ungrateful and hostile reaction left him utterly bewildered. He recalls how she was always popular, constantly surrounded by friends and admirers. Seeing yet another boy confess to her, Yamamoto just couldn't grasp her appeal. She once cut a confession short with a massive, bored yawn, leaving the admirer stunned. He recalls her high school nickname was the Arrogant Queen, a title earned through her dismissive attitude. Back in the present, he resolves to keep things professional, having zero good memories of her. His resolve falters when he spots a dark bruise peeking out from her sleeve. Forgetting his place, he impulsively asks what happened to her arm. His suspicion grows, realizing her long sleeves in summer must be hiding something much worse. The empty store suddenly feels tense as he wonders what lies beneath her sweatshirt. She quietly confesses that her boyfriend was the one who inflicted the injury. Yamamoto is left completely stunned by her shockingly casual admission. She adds that they live together, clicking her tongue at his unfiltered reaction. Hayashi glares, chiding him for always saying too much and getting involved. He watches her walk away, concluding he's angered her, just like he always seems to. Yet he can't fathom why she would confess something so personal to him of all people. The thought of the arrogant queen showing weakness makes him fear for her safety if she goes home. Acting on pure impulse, he vaults over the counter to stop her from leaving. He makes a bold and unexpected offer for her to stay at his apartment for the night. His kindness is met with a fierce glare as she tells him he's being intimidating. He frantically clarifies his intentions, suggesting safer alternatives like her parents' house. She then reveals a harsh truth. Her parents disowned her, leaving her with no family to turn to. With her options gone, he firmly insists she stay with him and prepares to give her his spare key. She surprisingly declines the key and says she will wait, leaving them both momentarily baffled. Hayashi calmly informs him that she will wait until his shift is over. He tells her it's an hour's wait, his mind flashing back to her days as the popular queen of their high school. Yamamoto studies her current, subdued demeanor, finding it completely at odds with the girl he once knew. An hour later, they arrive at his modest apartment building under the night sky. He welcomes her into his sparse but tidy apartment, offering to get her a drink. The surreal reality of the situation hits him. The infamous Hayashi is actually in his room. Despite having no ill intentions, he finds the proximity to her incredibly nerve-wracking. He takes a deep breath to steady his shaking hands before serving her the drink. She breaks the silence with a wry smile, remarking how she can't believe she's now indebted to him. He tries to brush it off, but she insists his timing was perfect, as they both needed to cool off. He cautiously probes, asking if her boyfriend was simply in a bad mood. She tries to justify the violence as a rare occurrence, but Yamamoto angrily tells her to stop making excuses. He instantly regrets his impulsive decision, thinking he should have just minded his own business. Hayashi's mood flips as she smiles, pointing out that he's also changed since high school. She then asks to borrow his shower, leaving a flustered Yamamoto to agree. The bizarre reality of the arrogant queen showering in his apartment finally hits him. She emerges refreshed in his clothes, casually complimenting his spotlessly clean bathroom. His eyes widen in shock as he notices even more bruises covering her legs. Hayashi looks down and grimly admits her situation is bad, calling her boyfriend hopeless. He points out that the bruises look old, forcing her to face how long this has been happening. He bluntly tells her she shouldn't be with her boyfriend, but her determined expression shows she plans to return anyway. She lashes out, questioning his right to judge, but he calmly clarifies it's just his opinion for her to consider. Yamamoto admits his concern is selfish, fearing he'd be blamed if she got hurt and he did nothing. He confesses that his intervention is ultimately to protect himself from future regret. He challenges her loyalty, asking why she'd stay with a man who uses her as an outlet for his stress. His old dislike for her fades as he realizes her self-sacrificing nature is rare, even if it's leading to her being exploited. A wave of anger hits him as he declares he won't stop her, even if her loyalty leads to her own ruin. He instantly regrets his outburst, certain his impulsive words have finally pushed her away. Resigned, he decides he's done all he can, while Hayashi quietly reflects on his harsh but honest warning. He offers her his bed for the night, deciding to sleep on the floor as she gratefully accepts. He gives her some space, telling her to think things over without any pressure. She teases him about his monk-like advice, suggesting it's the reason he's still single. He tries to settle down for the night, but sleep doesn't come easily with her in the room. A quiet stillness finally falls over the apartment as they both drift off to sleep. Despite the surprisingly comfortable arrangement, his mind races, convinced he won't be able to rest. From the bed, Hayashi peeks over the covers, her gaze fixed on the sleeping Yamamoto. She quietly breaks the silence, calling out to get his attention. Hayashi then makes an incredibly bold and unexpected proposition. Her shocking question jolts him from his thoughts, his mind reeling in disbelief. He panics, frantically reminding himself that letting her stay was purely a spur-of-the-moment decision. He yelps as she suddenly embraces him from behind, wondering if this is just another one of her games. Slipping down beside him, she reveals her hug was just a test to see if he was truly asleep. He demands to know who gave her permission, but she cheekily questions if she even needs it. He awkwardly tries to bring up her boyfriend, but her sudden silence tells him he's crossed a line. She bluntly questions his romantic experience, immediately seeing through his flustered denial. A sly smile spreads across her face as she calls his bluff, finding his panicked reaction endearing. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, he clenches his fist and glares, unable to form a better comeback. The playful mood vanishes as she begins to explain how her once kind boyfriend changed after they moved in together. Her memories darken, recalling how he would demean her for not earning money, his anger casting a threatening shadow over her. A heavy silence falls between them as her confession hangs in the air, leaving them both lost in thought. She acknowledges her story is grim and tells him to just go to sleep. He mutters that she's been through a lot, surprising himself with his own words. She playfully teases him, asking him to say it again, but he just tells her to sleep. With a fond smile, she calls him hopeless as he buries his face in the pillow. Leaning closer, she whispers that it's been a long time since someone showed her such concern. And just like that, this one night marked the beginning of them living together. Sometime later, Yamamoto groggily wakes up on his apartment floor. He sits up with a jolt, wondering why he's on the floor before the memories rush back. He turns to see Hayashi sleeping soundly beside him on the floor. The reality of their new arrangement sinks in as he sees them lying side by side. He looks over at her sleeping form, the strange events of last night finally making sense. Getting up, he observes her again, noting how drastically different she is from the girl he once knew. Deciding to start the day, he begins cooking them both a simple breakfast. The sound of him cooking eventually wakes Hayashi, who groggily stirs on the floor. She complains about being sore, prompting him to remind her that he offered her the bed. Drawn by the smell, she wanders into the kitchen and curiously asks what he's making. She's surprised to learn he can cook, but he just tells her to hang tight as it's almost ready. Soon after, 2 steaming plates of yakisoba are placed on the table. Hayashi wastes no time, eagerly taking her first bite of the meal. Her face lights up in genuine delight as she compliments his surprisingly amazing cooking. She finishes her meal with a heartfelt thank you, but he casually calls out her table manners. He downplays his cooking skills, but she insists he accept the compliment before offering to wash the dishes. She firmly insists on washing the dishes as repayment, then asks if he has a hair tie. He cluelessly offers a standard rubber band, which she complains will pull her hair out but accepts anyway. With the makeshift tie held between her teeth, she skillfully pulls her hair back. As she diligently washes the dishes, Yamamoto observes her, a pensive look on his face. He sits back and scrolls on his phone, wishing she would relax instead of trying to repay him. He decides it's time to discuss her future, but she confesses her fear of making the wrong choice. He encourages her to think objectively to prevent regret, but she immediately questions his confidence. She counters his logic, insisting that emotions often make objective decisions impossible. Yamamoto confidently refutes her claim, insisting that it's not impossible to be objective. She questions his certainty, but he calmly reassures her that she will be fine. He gives a thumbs up, declaring that he's here to help her make the right choice, leaving her speechless. Realizing he might have come on too strong, he awkwardly tries to continue the conversation. He offers to be her sounding board, and she admits he sounds surprisingly dependable. He quickly backpedals, claiming his concern is just him selfishly pushing his opinions on her. Hayashi smiles, touched by his clumsy but genuine attempt to help. He encourages her to share her story so they can work through it together, and she finally agrees. Her story reveals a dark and painful history, far from the amusing front she puts up. Despite the grim details, she tries to maintain a brave face, even as the weight of her past hangs between them. Yamamoto is baffled, wondering why she's smiling while recounting such a painful story. She explains her boyfriend wasn't always angry, but Yamamoto reveals he's researched the cycle of abuse. He illustrates the pattern of tension, violence, and regret, leading Hayashi to a dawning realization. He admits he looked it up while she did the dishes, and she confesses he's the first person she's ever told. He asks about her phone, but she reveals her boyfriend isolated her by claiming she didn't need one. The implication sinks in as he bluntly asks if her boyfriend was the one who broke her phone. She confirms she's been cut off from everyone, and Yamamoto's initial plan to just warn her is no longer enough. His resolve hardens. He's now determined to get her away from her boyfriend, even if she ends up hating him for it. But Hayashi is still trapped, trying to justify the abuse by recalling her boyfriend's occasional sweet side. Yamamoto listens intently, understanding her conflicted feelings as he strategizes on how to convince her to leave for good. With newfound clarity, Hayashi declares she will finally break up with her boyfriend. She admits Yamamoto was right, and that her boyfriend was just using her to feed his possessiveness. Yamamoto warns her the breakup won't be easy, and offers to help her plan the next steps. The terrifying possibility of retaliation sinks in, leaving Hayashi visibly shaken. He leans in with a determined look, proposing a plan to make her ex-boyfriend leave her alone for good. She panics, wondering if his plan involves violence, but he quickly dismisses the extreme idea. He reveals the first part of his plan involves a trip to the hospital, followed by the police. The mention of the police leaves her completely stunned, unable to process his suggestion. He explains that pressing charges will put her ex on the police's radar, ensuring her safety. She hesitates at the extreme measures, but Yamamoto tries to convince her it's the only way. He lays out the cold, hard facts of her isolation, reminding her how her boyfriend systematically trapped her. He presses the point, questioning her reluctance to involve the police even after everything she's endured. Hayashi falls silent, her gaze fixed on her own bruised leg as the weight of his words sinks in. She argues that simply leaving him is one thing, but pressing charges is a completely different, more terrifying step. Seeing her distress, he suddenly changes tactics and agrees to drop the idea of involving the police for now. He softens his approach, acknowledging that his plan might be too much and that her feelings are what matter most. He then makes a simple request, asking her not to take his intense suggestions so seriously. His mind flashes back to his own blunt philosophy. Being direct is simply more efficient, even if it lacks tact. He reiterates that they won't go to the police if it causes her more pain, then casually adds that she should stay with him for a while. His offer makes her immediately suspicious, causing her to question his true motives for wanting her to stay. She erupts in anger, calling him pathetic and demanding to know his true intentions. He calmly explains that her boyfriend is probably searching for her, making it too dangerous to go back. He concludes she should stay hidden in his apartment for a while, to which she quietly agrees. Yamamoto then tells her there's one more thing she must do, leaving her tense and wary. She completely misreads his tone, assuming he wants something physical in return for his help. He realizes with a jolt that she has once again misinterpreted his entire reason for helping her. Hayashi directly accuses him of wanting to take advantage of her situation. He frantically denies it, but she counters by bringing up his confusing behavior from the night before. A sudden realization hits him. She's just sick of being treated like an object. He finally clarifies that his only condition is for her to stop agreeing to things she doesn't want to do. His real condition is revealed. She must go to the hospital to get her injuries properly documented. While she agrees to his request, he senses an odd hint of disappointment in her tone. The official medical report confirms a torn wrist ligament and extensive bruising, solidifying his confusion about her. Leaving the hospital, they walk side by side down the street in a contemplative silence. He reflects on how she evaded the doctor's inquiries, realizing she's still protecting her ex out of fear. Understanding her hesitation, he decides to abandon the idea of pressing charges for the time being. He notes her sweatshirt is too warm for the weather and announces they're going clothes shopping for her. The mention of shopping makes her anxious about money, and she insists on paying him back eventually. He calmly dismisses her concerns with a gentle smile, telling her that any time is fine. At the store, she enthusiastically picks out some essentials, leaving a bewildered Yamamoto to avert his gaze. The next morning, Hayashi sleeps soundly in his bed, the early light revealing the extent of her injuries. Waking up sore on the floor, Yamamoto makes a mental note to buy a futon for himself. With time to spare before his classes, he considers starting his day with his usual cleaning routine. He decides against it, choosing instead to quietly prepare breakfast while she rests. Leaving a meal and a note for her, he hopes she gets all the sleep she needs. On his way to university, he can't shake the feeling that skipping his cleaning hobby feels wrong. Returning with a new futon, he's surprised to find the scent of cooking wafting from his apartment. He's greeted by Hayashi, who's busy at the stove, her hair neatly tied back. Yamamoto tells her she didn't need to cook, but she simply asks if he likes hamburger steak. She insists on contributing, explaining it's the least she can do while she's staying with him. She impatiently asks if he likes hamburger steak, revealing she's had plenty of practice making it. He gives a lukewarm response and she teases him for his half-hearted answer. While putting away groceries, he tells her they need to talk after dinner, making her pause. He suddenly wonders where she even got the ground beef, as they finally sit down to eat. After taking a bite, he admits her cooking is surprisingly good. A small, satisfied smile appears on her face as she quietly continues her meal. She insists on doing the dishes, explaining she wants to help with the chores. He watches her head to the kitchen, a pensive look on his face as he processes the scene. While she washes the dishes, he casually asks if she went outside at all today. He instantly regrets his choice of words, realizing he sounds like a possessive boyfriend as she turns to question him. He clarifies that his advice is optional, but he still has to point out the obvious danger. Yamamoto bluntly calls her reckless for risking a run-in with her ex-boyfriend. She angrily retorts that he couldn't possibly understand her situation, to which he calmly agrees. A tense silence hangs in the air as she quietly returns to the main room. She breaks the silence with an apology for being stubborn, and he admits he also messed up. Hayashi quickly dismisses his apology, telling him he has nothing to be sorry for. She explains she used the last of her money from her ex, revealing her fear that Yamamoto would get angry, just like he used to. She recounts how her ex would rage over trivial things, but mealtimes were the only moments of peace she ever had. She confesses she cooked for him, hoping it would prevent him from scolding her, a tactic she used with her ex. He finally asks what was so important, and she declares her new goal to get a part-time job. Yamamoto questions her sudden need for a job, suggesting the timing is all wrong. She looks down, confessing her deep-seated fear of becoming a burden to him. Hayashi admits she's worried about draining his savings and being unable to repay his kindness. He tries to reason with her, warning that one wrong move outside could be a mistake they can't take back. She defiantly accepts the risk, declaring that if her ex finds her, then that's just how it has to be. Her fatalistic response leaves him completely stunned, unable to process her reckless logic. He struggles to comprehend her reasoning, finding the queen's mindset utterly baffling. Yamamoto reflects on how he can't understand her heart or her constant resignation to fate. He thinks about how simple the solution is, just stay hidden in his apartment to avoid all risk. He then wonders if she's intentionally putting herself in harm's way just so she won't be a burden on him. He realizes how quickly her ex-boyfriend broke down the once arrogant queen into a helpless state. To counter her fatalism, he calmly tells her to look at his phone. He shows her his bank account, revealing a balance of over 1.5 million yen. Yamamoto explains his savings come from scholarships and part-time jobs, as he's always been frugal. He logically breaks down that her staying with him is no financial burden, so she doesn't need a job. She insists he has no reason to spend his hard-earned money on her, but he calmly refutes her claim. She grows distraught, insisting she's nothing but trouble and that he has no reason to keep her there. As she laments having nothing left, he realizes her desire for a job wasn't just about money. He deduces her true goal is to reclaim her dignity and firmly states he has his own reason for wanting her there. She again accuses him of lying, but he stands his ground, refusing to back down from his offer. He explains his reason is simple. With school and work, he needs someone to handle the housework. She scoffs at his straightforward logic, but he doubles down, calling himself a man of precision. His obsession is revealed. A single speck of dust or a water stain triggers a full-scale cleaning frenzy. He passionately explains that his busy schedule leaves no time for his hobby, then shuts down her simple conclusion. Yamamoto declares that cleaning is his life's purpose, a reason she finds utterly ridiculous. Changing the subject, he praises her cooking from earlier, and she quietly accepts the compliment. She finally agrees to stay, and he reassures her that being a trouble is just part of living together. Having found her new role, she offers to pack him a lunchbox for his classes, leaving him utterly baffled. She logically explains it's a way to save money, and while he agrees, she trails off with another question. With a slight blush, she shyly asks what kind of food he likes, wanting to make his lunch just right. Her simple question sends a jolt through him, leaving him to wonder what that feeling was. On the morning of their third day together, he wakes up refreshed on his new futon, his body finally free of aches. It's only 4:30 a.m., and though the urge to clean is strong, he decides not to wake the sleeping Hayashi. He retreats to the bathroom, figuring it's the perfect place to start his cleaning routine without making noise. An hour later, she stumbles out of bed, surprised to find him already deep into his scrubbing. While she brushes her teeth, he continues his meticulous work on the bathroom floor. She asks if he's always an early riser, and he confirms it's just part of his normal routine. As she takes a drink, she repeats her observation, making him suspect she's still half asleep. She playfully calls him a weirdo, remembering he was always the first one in their high school classroom too. He turns on the morning news and tells her to wait while he starts preparing their breakfast. She offers to help carry the breakfast plates, but he quickly stops her. He insists she's a guest and shouldn't overexert herself, but she argues she can handle it. His simple act of kindness is met with a sudden, angry outburst, leaving him completely confused. He retreats to the bathroom to change, concluding her casual attitude must be from living with her ex. While changing, he decides to start a load of laundry, tossing his clothes into the machine. He's startled when she suddenly appears, announcing that his lunchbox is ready. He questions her about his scream, and she retorts it was because he burst in on her while she was changing. A sly smirk spreads across her face as she realizes she's flustered him. She leans in close, teasingly pointing out his discomfort at her seeing him undressed. Hayashi then boldly whispers that she, on the other hand, would have no problem at all. He accepts the lunch she made, noting she even remembered his favorite side dish. She teases him for complaining about work, finding his surprisingly human side amusing. Hayashi points out that his actions, like his cooking, show he's more eager to help than he lets on. As he walks to class, he notes the rain has stopped, but a sense of unease lingers. The mundane commute on a crowded train does little to distract him from his worries. He realizes with grim certainty that just waiting won't solve Hayashi's problems. It could make them worse. His mind conjures a scenario where her ex becomes even more violent and bitter with time. The longer this drags on, the harder it will be to involve the police, as the abuse will only intensify. He foresees the exact problem, a police officer questioning why they waited so long to report the crime. The imagined officer's question echoes in his mind, highlighting the critical need for immediate action. He concludes that reporting the abuse immediately is still their best course of action. But he's already messed up by promising not to involve the police, realizing she'll just shut him down if he suggests it again. Lost in thought during a lecture, his eyes land on a familiar face across the room. He recognizes a cheerful young woman, a former classmate, chatting with her friends. A flashback identifies her as 𝘂𝘬𝘬𝘰𝘬𝘢, who was once Hayashi's best friend in high school. He realizes 𝘂𝘬𝘬 is the perfect person to convince Hayashi, even though they've never spoken at university. But a new fear stops him. What if 𝘂𝘬𝘬 is still in contact with Hayashi's abusive ex-boyfriend? He watches her from afar, debating whether involving her is a brilliant idea or a terrible risk. Despite how comfortable their new life is, he knows he needs an old classmate's help to truly save the former queen. He recalls how 𝘂𝘬𝘬 was even more popular than Hayashi, a top-tier girl, while he was just seen as a troublemaker. He remembers his blunt high school persona, which often earned him the ire of his female classmates. Convinced of his social ineptitude, he sighs, dismissing the idea of ever approaching the popular 𝘂𝘬𝘬𝘬. He scraps the plan entirely, resolving to find another way to help Hayashi on his own. During his lunch break, he sits down in the crowded cafeteria with the meal she packed. He pauses, staring at a sausage meticulously carved into the shape of a small octopus. His mind flashes back to Hayashi in his kitchen, carefully preparing the decorative food. A rare, satisfied smile crosses his face as he appreciates her thoughtful gesture. Returning home that evening, he's still no closer to a solution but refuses to give up. Hayashi welcomes him at the door, immediately offering to prepare their dinner. Noticing his clean clothes on the bed, he suggests she relax and take a bath first. She takes his advice, relaxing in a warm bath and finding the water just right. After his own bath, he finds she's already prepared a full dinner, making him feel a bit spoiled. He questions if this is too much hospitality for someone who just came home from class. She explains it's just a habit from her old life, prompting him to ask her to stop mentioning her ex. Hayashi admits she's the one who was surprised, revealing she had planned to clean the apartment. But she found the place was already freakishly spotless, a testament to his obsessive cleaning. He wonders why she's so shocked, but she clarifies her surprise was about something else. She admits that, in a strange way, her past experiences taught her these domestic skills. He insists she should be relaxing, but she playfully questions why he's lecturing her. While he thinks she's overdoing it, she yawns and tells him to at least act grateful for her efforts. He asks her to do less housework, only to be met with an intense, unreadable glare. She questions his relaxed attitude, pointing out that most people would just complain about her work. He explains his practical view on delegating, but she worries he's just tolerating her cooking. He tells her to eat whenever she's hungry, but she insists on waiting for him, leaving him baffled by her logic. While not fully agreeing, she finally understands his perspective on taking care of her. When he asks why she won't relax, she simply declares she's not cutting back on chores because she's bored. He suggests watching TV, then has a sudden realization. With her phone broken, she has nothing to do. Without a word, he gets up and rummages through his belongings, looking for a solution. He turns back and presents an electronic device, leaving a stunned Hayashi to wonder what it is. He offers her his old tablet, a simple gesture to ease her boredom and give her a connection to the world again. She teases him for telling her to relax, finding his reversed logic completely amusing. He brushes off her comment, simply pushing the tablet into her hands. She carefully takes the device, her expression softening at his unexpected kindness. A radiant, blushing smile spreads across her face as she gives him a heartfelt thank you. He looks away, flustered by her reaction, and tries to downplay his gesture. He even gives her the charger, but she insists on finishing the dishes before relaxing. Later, while she's using the tablet on the bed, she calls out to get his attention. She suddenly offers the tablet back to him, cryptically stating it's just for 10 minutes. Her bizarre request leaves him utterly baffled as she returns to the bed. He looks at the screen and is horrified to discover the questionable content she was browsing. He panics, realizing his old, questionable bookmarks are still saved on the device. He frantically tries to delete the evidence, but she calls his name, catching him in the act. With a sly smile, she teases him, having figured out the nature of his secret browsing history. Completely flustered, he begs her to stop teasing him about his discovery. She erupts in laughter at his mortified reaction, finding the whole situation hilarious. As the night deepens, she playfully asks about his type in girls, but he keeps his answer to himself. Despite their growing closeness, he still wonders what secrets she's hiding behind her guarded look. On the 4th morning of their cohabitation, Yamamoto is the first to wake up. He finds a dirty spot in the bathroom and is filled with an obsessive, gleeful urge to clean it. But as Hayashi begins to stir, he freezes, realizing his early morning activities might have woken her up. Hayashi sits up in bed, sleepily greeting the morning after being woken by the noise. He apologizes for the disturbance, but she's more curious about why he suddenly shouted. He explains his outburst was from the sheer joy of seeing the grime come off so easily. She brightly relates to his excitement, asking if he also tends to scream when he's thrilled. Her suggestive phrasing hits him like a ton of bricks, leaving him completely stunned. As she apologizes for oversleeping, he's left blushing at the unintentional innuendo. She stretches, admitting she was up late enjoying the tablet he gave her. Over breakfast, he casually asks what she was watching that kept her so captivated. She gives a vague answer about watching videos, but he presses for more details. She eagerly offers to show him, making him recall her recent lecture on table manners. She shows him a video about a couple being rudely turned away from a fancy restaurant. The couple then vents at a diner, whose owner happens to be the restaurant's former and very angry head chef. The video concludes with the satisfying revenge of the rude employee getting fired. Hayashi looks at him with sparkling eyes, eagerly awaiting his opinion on the video. He offers a weak agreement, but internally admits he's never enjoyed these kinds of stories. Yamamoto dislikes plots where the main character uses someone else's influence to punish their enemies. He finds it lazy when protagonists simply complain and wait for a convenient hero to solve their problems. She excitedly asks what he liked about it, revealing a history full of similar revenge videos. He's confused by her question, so she leans in, asking what specific part he found so entertaining. Her innocent question leaves him sweating and speechless, unable to give her the answer she wants. She leans in close, correctly guessing he didn't enjoy the video. He quickly backpedals, claiming he was just annoyed at the waiter in the story for not reading the room. To his shock, she completely believes his flimsy excuse. As he leaves for the day, he reminds her to get some rest, mentioning he doesn't have work. Walking to class, he realizes her obsession with revenge videos might stem from a desire to punish her ex. He decides he doesn't want a hero to save her. He wants Hayashi to take that step for herself. On campus, he worries that her ex is undoubtedly searching for her now that it's been 4 days. Concluding the situation needs to be resolved quickly, he decides he must ask Kasahara for help. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself to finally approach her old friend. Determined not to back out again, he scans the lecture hall, searching for Kasahara. But his search is fruitless. Kasahara is nowhere to be found, leaving him completely defeated. His brilliant plan hits a dead end, seemingly marking the end of his efforts for the day. Dejected, he walks home, realizing his only chance to see her is in French class, and today was a total bust. As he approaches his apartment, he's struck by an unsettling sight. All the lights are off. A terrifying thought hits him as he recalls Hayashi going out to buy groceries for their dinner. He's consumed by the worst-case scenario. Her ex spotted her, followed her home, and now knows their location. Overcome with dread, he bolts up the stairs to his apartment, desperately calling out her name. He throws the door open, his mind reeling with terrible possibilities as he enters the dark apartment. His frantic search ends when he spots her on the bed, the tablet resting on her chest. A wave of relief washes over him as he realizes she's just been sleeping soundly the entire time. He watches her sleep, a little annoyed that her only response to his silent worry is a snore. Deciding not to wake her, he starts hanging his freshly washed laundry by the window. The sound startles her awake, and she sits up in a panic, immediately apologizing for sleeping in. As she tries to get up, she stumbles forward, and he quickly catches her before she falls. He scolds her for getting up too fast, but she brushes off his concern, clearly embarrassed. She sits on the floor, looking down as she apologizes, and he tells her not to get so worked up. Her distress deepens as she explains that doing the chores was supposed to be her responsibility. She looks up with a guilty expression, admitting she feels like she skipped out on her duties. He tries to reassure her that it's fine, but she stubbornly refuses to let it go. Her mind flashes to an imagined scenario where he scolds her for sleeping all day instead of doing housework. He offers a simple solution, telling her to just stop staying up all night on the tablet. He questions why he'd be mad, explaining that blaming herself is a waste of time when she can just fix the problem. He then decides to give her some advice, leaving her to wonder what he's about to say. With a deadpan expression, he declares that no one dies from simply messing up. He puts her mistake into perspective, asking if anyone actually died because she skipped chores. With the matter settled, he tells her to stop beating herself up, and she meekly agrees to get more sleep. She thanks him with a gentle smile, admitting that he's far more mature than she expected. She then teases him for being so mature it's almost creepy, which only annoys him. Laughing it off, she heads to the kitchen, wondering if this is what it feels like to live with someone you love. He watches her go, puzzled by her comment, but she just dismisses it as nothing. With a wistful smile, she admits she wishes they had talked more back in high school. He dryly replies that it's good she realizes that now, admitting the feeling is mutual. His unexpected confession brings a genuinely happy, blushing smile to her face. They both ponder how different high school might have been, but he dismisses the idea of dwelling on regrets. He tells her they still have time to start over, but his casual response to her dinner question falls flat. She erupts, lecturing him that whatever is the worst answer anyone can give when asked what they want to eat. Taken aback by her passionate outburst, he warns her to reserve that kind of lecture just for him. He sheepishly recalls his own mother giving him the same advice as he continues to eat. He internally clarifies that his whatever was a genuine compliment since all of her cooking is delicious. On the 5th day of their arrangement, he reflects on how much she has changed as he walks through the university campus. He considers trying to convince her to report her ex again, feeling she might finally be receptive. He scans the crowded cafeteria, annoyed to find no available seats for lunch. Just as he's about to give up, a hand on his shoulder stops him in his tracks. It's Kasahara, offering him a seat and making him wonder if she's the lifeline he's been looking for. To his complete shock, she invites him to sit at her table, pointing to an empty spot. He accepts her offer, and she cheerfully explains that classmates should help each other out. As he settles in, they exchange pleasantries, both noting it's been a long time since high school. She then playfully accuses him of avoiding her, catching him completely off guard. He awkwardly explains he only talks to people when necessary, not because he was avoiding her specifically. His blunt explanation is met with a moment of awkward silence between the two of them. He asks why she didn't just talk to him then, and she cheekily agrees that it's a fair point. She smiles, saying she's happy to help, leaving him flustered by her easily misinterpreted words. He cuts to the chase, asking what she wants, and she's taken aback by his directness. Kasahara's expression turns serious as she asks if he remembers Hayashi, stunning him into silence. He recalls how she and Hayashi were always obnoxiously close, and she laughingly agrees. She then asks if he's seen Hayashi recently, revealing she knows their old friend is also in Tokyo. Yamamoto is left speechless, his mind racing to understand the implications of her question. He wonders why Kasahara is suddenly looking for Hayashi, a sense of suspicion growing. A dark thought crosses his mind. Perhaps Hayashi's ex-boyfriend asked Kasahara to find her. He realizes if Kasahara is connected to the ex, he can't risk saying anything about Hayashi's situation. Kasahara's friend interrupts their tense standoff, asking her to identify the mysterious Yamamoto. The friend Eri is shocked Kasahara even knows him, creating an awkward introduction at the crowded table. Another friend playfully declares Yamamoto is Kasahara's boyfriend, a joke he finds anything but funny. Kasahara finally places him, remembering him as the genius who dominates their French class quizzes. The friend gets handsy, latching onto his arm and aggressively asking the class genius for tutoring lessons. He's internally reeling, completely overwhelmed by how aggressively she's coming on to him. Eri casually shoots down the idea, revealing she knows his class schedule and leaving him baffled. With a pout, Kasahara leans in, expressing her disappointment that their tutoring session won't happen. Her focus shifts to his lunch, and she's genuinely surprised to discover he can cook. As he takes a bite, Eri calls his bento super homey, earning a short, awkward confirmation from him. He internally laments that he can't reveal Hayashi made his lunch, feeling stuck without knowing if Kasahara is a threat. A sudden realization hits him mid-bite, making him pause his meal. He decides the simplest solution is to just ask Hayashi directly about her past and Kasahara's potential involvement. Returning home, he's greeted by a smiling Hayashi who's already busy cooking dinner. Her cheerful expression vanishes, replaced by a sharp, questioning look that catches him off guard. She asks if he met another girl, and he realizes she must have smelled the perfume from his encounter at lunch. Her eyes narrow with anger as she confirms her suspicions were correct. She angrily confronts him, demanding to know why he met another woman, leaving him stunned by her possessive tone. He fires back, questioning her reaction since they aren't in a relationship, causing her to look away in defeat. She quietly admits she has no right to be upset, lamenting that any other girl would be a better choice for him. She questions their entire arrangement, wondering why she's even living there if they aren't a couple. He realizes with frustration that she has once again twisted everything around. He reaches out to stop her, but she recoils in tears, furiously warning him not to touch her. Without another word, she flees the apartment, leaving him stunned and calling after her into the night. She wanders the dark streets alone, breathless and overwhelmed by her own actions. The weight of her impulsive decision hits her, leaving her filled with regret and confusion. She stops in the middle of the street, questioning her own rash behavior and what she's even doing. She recalls the moment she fled, her hand clenched in a tight fist of confused anger. She breaks down, realizing the scent of another woman's perfume was the final straw that made her snap. A flood of memories, his kindness, his logic, his support, contrast sharply with her own destructive outburst. Overwhelmed by her own actions, she's consumed by a wave of tearful regret. Wandering the streets, she calls herself an idiot, torn between thinking he's angry or relieved she's gone. The thought of Yamamoto hating her is unbearable, leaving her completely paralyzed with indecision. Defeated and alone, she collapses to the ground, silently wishing for him to come and save her. A sudden footstep startles her as an unfamiliar hand reaches out from behind. She looks up in terror to see her ex-boyfriend, who calmly calls out her name. Frozen in place, she recognizes Seiji, the very person she's been desperately hiding from. He closes in with a chillingly pleasant smile, asking where she's been all this time. Her mind flashes back to how they first met at a group mixer, where she felt pressured to socialize. While her friend was excited, she had remained completely detached, just going through the motions. He smoothly introduces himself, but she remains silent, lost in the memory. Her first impression was of a calm, well-mannered man who seemed completely harmless. She saw him as a banker from a different world, far removed from her own struggles. A flashback reveals her constant financial hardship, juggling part-time jobs to get by in Tokyo. She had moved to the city to escape her controlling father and his suffocating rules. But her newfound freedom was a lonely one, marked by cheap dinners and constant worry about money. Dating Seiji, therefore, felt like a thrilling and fresh escape from her difficult life. He showed her a world of carefree drives and seemingly perfect moments. So when he asked her to move in, she accepted, admitting to herself it was a calculated move for stability. But the illusion shattered, as his kindness turned to relentless verbal abuse and hollow apologies. A flashback reveals the physical evidence of his cruelty, her face bruised and her eyes wide with terror. He would even criticize her cooking, offering backhanded compliments that chipped away at her confidence. Every day, she was forced to see him off to work, kneeling by the door in a display of forced submission. The days and nights blurred together, trapping her in an endless cycle of isolation within their apartment. Consumed by the constant fear of his return, she reached her breaking point, realizing she had nowhere left to turn. With a final, desperate resolve, she fled the apartment, seeking refuge in the anonymity of the night. It was in that moment of desperation that she ran into Yamamoto, a man who was the complete opposite of her tormentor. Back in the present, Seiji corners her on the street, his calm questioning doing little to hide his simmering rage. His pleasant facade cracks for a moment, revealing a flash of cold, possessive anger. He quickly feigns concern, his words dripping with a chilling sweetness as he tells her he was worried. Overwhelmed with fear, she offers a weak, trembling apology to her ex-boyfriend. He smugly tells her to come home, cruelly pointing out that she has nowhere else to go. The word home triggers a terrifying memory of her cowering in a corner of their apartment. She recalls the dread of being forced back to that place, a prison she couldn't escape. Her mind spirals into despair, believing she's worthless and has no choice but to return to him. But then she remembers Yamamoto's simple kindness and his strange yet comforting logic. She recalls how he gave her a sense of purpose and worth, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Tears streaming down her face, she realizes she desperately wants to go back to Yamamoto's safe apartment. Convinced she's ruined everything, she wonders what his logical advice would be in this moment. His voice echoes in her mind, asking the one simple question that cuts through her despair. What does she truly want? Her mind clears as she finally understands what she truly desires. Seiji lets out a condescending laugh, completely dismissing her sudden change in demeanor. He feigns concern, asking what's wrong, but she just stares back at him. With newfound fire in her eyes, she declares she is never going back to him. Her bold statement leaves him utterly speechless, unable to process her defiance. She unleashes her fury, telling him he'll never understand her suffering and ordering him to leave. His hollow apology for his occasional outbursts only fuels her rage as she reminds him it was a daily torment. He callously shifts the blame, admitting he got irritated because she never listened to him. She desperately lists her sacrifices, including dropping out of college, but he just scoffs at her lack of financial contribution. He cruelly lists her supposed flaws, smugly declaring she has nothing and no one, while he can easily find a replacement. He smugly declares he's the only one who would ever tolerate her, trying to break her spirit. Her eyes widen in horrified realization at how much she sacrificed for such a cruel man. He grabs her arm, trying to drag her away as she realizes she was completely disposable to him. His grip tightens cruelly on her wrist as she desperately tries to resist being taken. As he forces her down the street, she screams for help, her last hope calling out for Yamamoto. A hand suddenly intercepts his, and a voice commands him to back off immediately. Yamamoto appears out of nowhere, placing himself between Hayashi and her terrified ex. With tears of relief, she looks at her savior, who coldly informs Seiji that she's not going anywhere. Drenched in sweat, Yamamoto stands as her shield, marking a tense end to the chapter. Overwhelmed with emotion, she realizes he had been frantically searching for her the entire time. Seiji tries to de-escalate, claiming it's a simple misunderstanding between a couple. Yamamoto points out Hayashi's obvious terror, but her ex dismisses it as one of her hysterical episodes. Unconvinced, Yamamoto recalls the very concerning threats he overheard just moments before. Seiji tries to frame the situation as a simple lover's quarrel, which Hayashi tearfully seems to accept. But Yamamoto calls his bluff, mentioning he heard disturbing talk of physical violence. Seiji's pleasant demeanor shatters, angrily telling the outsider to mind his own business. He doubles down on his lie, loudly insisting their public fight is just one of her episodes and that he still loves her. Hayashi despairs, convinced that the logical Yamamoto will see right through the flimsy excuse. To her shock, Yamamoto seems to concede, agreeing that it's not his place to interfere. But it's a brilliant trap, as he turns to the stunned ex and declares they're all going to the police. Seiji panics at the suggestion, but Yamamoto calmly states the police can sort out their stories fairly. He then points out their loud public argument has already attracted a crowd of concerned neighbors. Yamamoto calls out Seiji's contradictory excuses, questioning if he even wants a resolution. He presses further, asking if there's a specific reason Seiji is so afraid to involve the authorities. Yamamoto then draws attention to the visible marks on Hayashi's arms, cornering the ex with the evidence. As the neighbors begin to whisper, Hayashi looks down, overwhelmed by the public scrutiny. Seiji desperately tries to explain away the injuries, but the onlookers are already suspecting the worst. Yamamoto calmly refutes the lie, noting the various stages of healing on her arms and legs. Cornered and out of excuses, Seiji finally explodes with rage, demanding to know who Yamamoto is. He loudly declares they're a loving couple, a claim that leaves Hayashi looking utterly horrified. With a cold, logical fury, Yamamoto prepares to completely dismantle Seiji's pathetic defense. He interrogates the ex, demanding to know what he did while she was gone and if he even bothered to report her missing. He explodes at the flimsy excuse, pointing out that Seiji didn't support her, he only blamed and tormented her. He declares that Seiji's behavior isn't love, but a pathetic, childish power trip to make himself feel superior. She watches in awe, realizing with a surge of emotion that he's genuinely angry for someone like her. With the neighbors now forming a sizable crowd, Seiji is visibly cornered by the public humiliation. Completely defeated, Seiji bows his head and mutters an apology, hoping to end the confrontation. His apology quickly turns into a self-pitying excuse, claiming he can't help it when he loses it. He holds the pathetic pose, hoping his feigned remorse will be enough to de-escalate the situation. But Hayashi sees through the hollow apology, knowing he'll just do it again, and crushes his hopes by declaring she's never coming back. Seiji desperately pleads for her to stay, but she coldly tells him to stop his empty lies. He begs her to come home, his face a mask of desperate, pathetic pleading. Her gaze then falls on a suspicious mark on Seiji's collar, sparking a new thought. A memory of the other woman with Yamamoto triggers a cold realization about her ex. She accuses Seiji of already having a replacement, which is why he never bothered to report her missing. With dawning horror, she realizes his supposed worry was a complete lie, and he never cared at all. Seiji panics, reaching out for her as he sees his control slipping away completely. She delivers a single devastating word, a final cold rejection of her former tormentor. The night after the chaotic confrontation, Yamamoto sits alone in his quiet apartment, lost in thought. He looks around the now empty room, noticing how strangely spacious it feels before starting to clean. He realizes how accustomed he's grown to her presence, now wondering when she'll finally return. Unable to focus on anything else, his mind is completely consumed with thoughts of her. Staring blankly at his computer screen, he silently wishes for her to just come home already. Late that night, the sound of the door opening finally breaks the silence as Hayashi returns. He turns around, trying to sound casual as he comments on how long she was gone. Her face is shrouded in shadow as she quietly enters, prompting a worried Yamamoto to ask what's wrong. A flashback reveals that Hayashi was taken to the police station for questioning after the confrontation. He explains that her ex fled when the police arrived, and they sent him home, leaving him in the dark. Seeing her distressed state, he suggests she take a shower to help clear her mind. She silently nods in agreement, and he gives her some space to process the night's events. He decides to cook for her, figuring she needs space before talking about the ordeal. Just as the fried rice is ready, the bathroom door clicks open, and he turns to greet her. But Hayashi emerges wrapped only in a towel, her expression fragile and defeated. Completely flustered by the sight, he awkwardly scolds her for forgetting to bring clothes. To his horror, she lets the towel fall, and he frantically turns away, demanding she cover up. With tears in her eyes, she explains that he saved her in a way she can never possibly repay. She offers herself to him, believing it's her obligation to submit to whatever he wants. She explains her body is the only thing her ex ever valued, so it's all she has to offer. Furious, he grabs her, asking if she's trying to turn him into the same kind of monster she just escaped. He shoves clothes at her, yelling that if he accepted her offer, he'd be no better than her abuser. She stares back, completely baffled by his angry response and questioning his logic. His words finally break through her trauma, and she dissolves into tears, asking why he's always so kind to her. As she sobs like a child, she offers a quiet apology, completely overwhelmed by his reaction. A sudden sneeze breaks the tension, and he calmly tells her to get dressed before she catches a cold. He lets out a weary sigh as she finally goes to get changed, leaving him alone with his thoughts. He returns to the kitchen, realizing their dinner has gone completely cold during the emotional confrontation. Now fully dressed, she quietly calls out his name, getting his attention as he stands by the stove. She hesitantly asks if it's still okay for her to stay in his apartment after everything that's happened. He flips the script, asking what she truly wants, a question that seems to confuse her. She explodes with frustration, insisting the decision is his to make since it's his home, not hers. He sighs at her outburst, tired of her circling back to the same self-defeating logic. With a serious expression, he reminds her that he already gave her his answer long ago. He states that he is her ally, and helping her is not an inconvenience he minds. He puts the decision back on her, asking if she truly wants to stay or not. She questions his reasoning, pointing out that her ex has now seen his face. She worries that because of her, he might become the next target of her ex's anger. Overwhelmed, she asks why he's still willing to hide her despite the new risk. With tears in her eyes, she questions why he would go to such lengths for someone like her. He gives a simple, logical answer, stating he helps her simply because he can. As she processes his words, he looks at their cold dinner and admits there's another reason. He smiles, admitting his other reason is simply that he wants to eat her delicious hamburger steak again. Seeing her chance, she asks if he'd be willing to do anything in exchange for her cooking. He gives a deadpan confirmation, completely serious about his end of the bargain. Emboldened by his answer, she declares that she has 2 requests for him. He calmly asks her to state her terms, ready to hear what she wants. She hesitates for a moment, looking down as she gathers her courage. With a determined blush, she grabs her hair and prepares to make her demands. Her first request is simple. She wants his permission to continue living with him. He agrees without a second thought, having already made up his mind. Yamamoto then prompts her for her second condition, waiting to hear what else she wants. With a steely gaze, she declares her second condition: she wants to file a police report. Her sudden determination leaves him completely stunned and speechless. She confesses her fear of backing out, but is more afraid of losing anything else. In a desperate plea, she bows deeply and begs him to accompany her to the police station. He silently considers her plea as she remains bowed before him, gathering her courage. Looking up with renewed hope, she believes that with his help, everything will finally be okay. Recognizing she's finally taking a step forward on her own, he quietly agrees to help. She offers a heartfelt thank you, sealing the unique bond between 2 people who are neither friends nor lovers. The following day, an exhausted Yamamoto yawns through his shift at the convenience store. He reflects on the slow day, relieved that he no longer has to worry about her immediate safety. He accompanies Hayashi to the police station, where she officially files a report against her ex. That same night, the police visit her ex's apartment, only to discover he has already fled. An officer escorts Hayashi to the now empty apartment, confirming there's no sign of his return. Elsewhere, the fugitive ex looks over his shoulder, wondering where to hide next. Yamamoto worries about how long it will take to find him, knowing Hayashi is still on edge. His thoughts are interrupted as a customer enters the convenience store during his shift. To his surprise, it's Hayashi, who cheerfully explains she came out late to buy toothpaste. He gently scolds her, saying she could have just called, but she reminds him she has no phone. He offers to buy her a smartphone to contact him and her friends, but she immediately rejects the idea. Her expression darkens as she cynically remarks that friends are only useful when you need something. Her cynical view on friendship makes him pause, his expression unreadable. He points out that without a phone, he has no way to help her if she gets into trouble. Yamamoto calls her out for being too optimistic, reminding her that her ex is still a threat. She playfully brushes off his worries, telling him to go home and get some rest instead. He reluctantly agrees to her offer to chat, and she happily accepts his compliance. But instead of leaving, she lingers, revealing she came specifically to talk with him. With a bright smile, she begins to playfully interrogate him about his part-time job. Visibly annoyed by the sudden interview, he curtly answers that he's only worked there for 2 months. Her questions become more personal, and he internally questions why he's even entertaining her. She fires off a barrage of questions about his life, but he shuts down every inquiry with a blunt no. She playfully teases him, calling him a clean freak and asking if cleaning is his only hobby. Her intense gaze fixes on him, waiting for a real answer to her questions. He's completely baffled by her sudden and very personal line of questioning. She reminds him of their conversation about high school, suggesting their relationship could finally change. Hayashi admits she constantly regrets not getting to know him sooner. With a determined smile, she declares her intention to learn everything about him now. He turns away, trying to maintain his stoic composure in the face of her forwardness. But a faint blush betrays his cool exterior, revealing he's more flustered than he lets on. He tries to deflect, insisting there's nothing interesting about him to discuss. She winks, telling him it's too late as she's already made up her mind, much to his annoyance. He gives in, agreeing to tell her exactly what he thinks of her. She turns back, playfully asking if he's really going to be honest. Leaning in, she challenges him to reveal what it's really like living with her. He immediately starts listing her flaws, complaining that she's stubborn and gives him headaches. But despite his gripes, he admits with a blush that it's not actually that bad. She smiles knowingly, teasing him for being too shy to admit he enjoys her company. He internally admits that this strange girl spoils him far too much. The two share a laugh, finally comfortable and at ease with each other. She then changes the subject, brightly asking what he wants to eat for dinner. He playfully tells her to guess, but she just sighs, annoyed by his familiar non-answer. He reflects on how his high school self would never have believed he'd end up in this situation. He concludes that living with the former arrogant queen of his school isn't so bad after all.